mean,
Yeah,
there
I
are
agree.
some really, really big deer in Mississippi. We've got a high deer population. We've got a liberal limit. And if you manage these deer here, they've got 12 months a year where these deer are taken care of. They don't have a lot of natural predators. They don't have a lot of winter kill like some of the other places do. I mean, Mississippi is a real sleeper state.
Man, Buck Junkies are back up here at the office, just hanging out. We're one man short, but we filled him in. Mikey, what we got going on today?
We got Mr. Chism Craig here, and we're going to talk a little bit about some seed and food plots today.
Sounds good.
We need to, because mine needs some rain on it, something serious right now.
Yeah, we're in a little bit of a drought right now. I don't know how. We got a bunch of rain the other day from, what was the hurricane's name? Helen or whatever it was that came through a week or two ago.
Hurricane Helene.
Yeah.
Helene.
Better get it right.
Yeah. But anyways, we got another one down in the Gulf. It ain't coming by us. We were hoping it was, and we actually have planted some of our food plots, and we're dry again. But
So mine is coming up. It's been, what was it, 5 days?
Yeah, at the end
End of last week, we planted it, and it's germinated, but I don't know that that's a good thing right now because it's finna be dry.
Yeah. May run out of moisture.
Yeah. So, but I'm about 75 yards from my water spigot at my house, so I'm finna run some hose, and we're gonna put some water on it this week. So, hopefully, we'll get it back. But that's about it. What else we got going on at the farm right now?
we got most of our food plots in. Got a couple little small ones, little hidey-hole plots or whatever you want to call them, little quarter-acre plots that we need a hand throw, and pretty much that's about it. Stands are sprayed. All of them been checked, and they're in good condition, so we're getting ready to go.
You went to Arca Butler last week, didn't you?
Last weekend for the Arca Butler Physically Challenged Hunt. We had our first work day and have another one coming up this weekend, and going to get the ball rolling on that too.
So what are y'all doing when y'all do a work day at
So they finally got their bunkhouse built, finished out. So we're finishing building up bunk beds. So it'll be able to sleep, I think like 10 different people in the bunkhouse itself. And then, just putting up a couple more deer stands and finishing up, fixing the trails, getting everything ready to go.
Do they do food plots down there too? Or
Yes and no. It's some of it's over some farm ground they have, so the farmer will leave a little bit around the edges, but
they don't physically go in and like plant.
It's a couple of spots it is, but a lot of it's in the woods, so you got acorn and stuff like that anyway already out there. But
no, we get some rain, we'll be looking good, hopefully.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Get a little rain, get some fertilizer down for the rain, and we should be good, I think. But
You need to give these farmers about 10 more days
for rain.
before we get a rain.
yeah, I was thinking about that.
We're being greedy.
Yeah. All the food plot people.
Right now, I see they're picking cotton and beans and everything out by the house, and I know that's, worrying them to death trying to get those crops in before that next rain. So
That's right.
But anyways, we got Mr. Chism Craig here today to Chism, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, goodness. Where do you want me to start?
Wherever you want to, sir.
So born and raised in Mississippi, grew up on a cotton, soybean, corn farm. Family's been there for 3 or 4 generations. I got out of college, thought I would go back to the farm.
What did you go to college for?
What did I go to college for?
What did you get a degree in?
Oh, gosh. Well, I've got an undergraduate degree in ag pest management. I've got a master's degree in entomology, which is insects. And I've got a PhD in agronomy. So I stayed in school for quite a while. I put off working as long.
How to spell those.
Yeah.
Smarter than me.
That's why I let him pronounce them, because I texted him. I was like, what degrees do you have? And I was like, I don't even think I can pronounce
I think you're a little overqualified to be on this podcast. I'll be honest.
No. So anyway, I didn't go back to the farm right off. Spent some time. I was on the faculty at a university at the University of Tennessee. Left there and joined a company called Monsanto. You've probably heard of them. Spent a good bit of time there. Moved around a good bit. Had an opportunity to move back to Mississippi about 17 or 18 years ago. And guess the first time I met you is when we had started a seed company called Local Seed Company.
Yeah.
And we sold that business about 3 years ago. And I spent about a year just doing some consulting projects, doing some farming, things like that, and went back to work for a large multinational ag company called Corteva. And so they're based in Johnston, Iowa and Indianapolis. But I still farm on the side with my dad. My son helps on the farm. And of course, everybody in the ag business got into the ag business 20, 25 years ago because we could work 6-8 months out of the year, the crop cycle. And then we had the whole hunting season off. And the problem today is the ag business is 12 months a year.
Yeah.
And so everybody that got into ag, like I did, thinking, oh, I'm going to have all winter to hunt. That's my busiest time. We travel. It backfired. So anyway.
Well, you, how many acres y'all actually farm?
We farm a little over about 1,800.
Okay. But y'all are not just, y'all actually have property that y'all hunt and y'all do.
Oh, yeah.
And things like that on too, though.
My dad is probably more concerned with the trees and the wildlife than he is his crops. Every year he complains about how the deer eat up his soybeans, but then when it comes time to kill them, they're pet.
Yeah.
He got too much invested in them.
That's right. But no, we spend a lot of time and effort to make sure that we've got good habitat. We plant a lot of food plots. Of course, we've got soybeans that we leave. We've got soybeans that's waste grain on the ground. We've got corn that we leave. And we've got some neighbors who are probably even more dedicated and more intensive than we are, some large landowners. So we control a very large block around the farm. And so we've actually got some really, really good deer hunting.
So like with your neighbors and stuff like that, did y'all always have that relationship with them to where they were doing some of the same stuff, or did y'all have to kind of grow into that and kind of get on the same page?
I think so. The part of the Delta that I'm from, we've got a lot of big landowners. There are a lot of big tracts of land that are on the Mississippi River. Those clubs have been in existence for a long time, and the term big buck program sort of originated with a lot of those clubs. And so I can't remember a time growing up, I'm 51 years old. And so from the time I grew up hunting, we were always on some management program. Now, nothing like it is today. We weren't talking about age. We weren't talking about particular scores or anything like that. But we had to shoot 8 points or better, 20-inch main beam or inside spread of a certain width or whatever. So at the time we were trying to shoot, better deer. We weren't shooting every rack buck that came by, but it's gotten a lot more technical today. We've got people with camera surveys. We're aging these deer. We're scoring these deer. We've got no shoot list. It's a different ball game today.
That's a big time business.
Very, very big. People spend a lot of money on habitat management and, deer, turkey, ducks.
I think that's a good point too. What you just said is like, even when we were younger growing up, it was, hey, it's got to be an 8-point or bigger, or 16-inch spread or something like that. Well, now looking back, we've seen pictures of deer that's 5-6 years old that won't even meet that.
Absolutely.
But that's a deer that, that's a trophy.
Right.
Like, if you get a deer, especially in Mississippi, go to 5 or even 6, like that's unheard of.
It is.
That's a giant.
Yeah. And the thing is, I've been fortunate enough just in my career to, travel to the Midwest or out West or on the East Coast. And, I hate that we're doing these podcasts because Mississippi is a sleeper state. There are some really, really big deer in Mississippi. We've got a high deer population. We've got a liberal limit. And if you manage these deer here, they've got 12 months a year where these deer are taken care of. They don't have a lot of natural predators. They don't have a lot of winter kill like some of the other places do. And so
we're going to cut all this out. So we're not going to let that get out.
Yeah, we're not going to let that get out. But in reality, Mississippi is a real sleeper state.
And I don't think I realized that until just here recently. And it kind of goes back, we always think of food plots as growing up, we planted a food plot in the fall. We harvested deer on that food plot that fall. It was not a long-term goal. And I think that's a mistake or a misconception is people think of food plots as a quick and easy way to get deer on your property. And you're not going to see results of these food plots till 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Not at all. And I tell people, they call me and they ask me questions about what should I plant. And I think everybody has probably got unrealistic expectations of what they can get out of a food plot. First and foremost, we plant them, and I used to call them killing plots. They were just an attractant.
Yeah.
It was a green field. It was a right of way, whatever, to stop a deer, stand there while you could shoot him.
Yeah.
And I think we've evolved to the point where we're looking at these food plots as a 12-month-a-year food source for these deer that supplements that natural browse or acorns or whatever it is so that we can get that quality that we're looking for.
And that, that was in that's a hard investment for a lot of people to get into. If especially if you're hunting on clubs and stuff like that, you have to get everybody bought into that on a club. That you can't just be the only person doing it. Because I feel like that if ever you doing it by yourself under your own dollar,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not going to come from the club because everybody else is, you know how clubs are. They're only going to want to plant killing plots.
Right.
Plant some turnip greens
that's right.
September and let it be.
That's
But,
right.
Getting people into that idea of planting year-round food plots, after you helped me do a lot on our farm and you've consulted me in a lot of different things. And you brought a lot of things to light that I didn't really understand just by, with the knowledge that you have and stuff like that. And I've seen that come to fruition now in the last couple of years of us doing year-round food plots. The quality of our deer changed. The weight of our deer is one of the major things that we've seen a difference in is, when Malcolm got that farm, we were killing these little runny-looking deer that were just 70-pound does?
Yeah, 70-pound does, 130-pound bucks. And now we've killed 130-pound doe, you know?
Yeah.
We're killing, over 100-pound does now. And, our buck weight is, probably the heaviest buck that we've actually scaled has probably been around 185 or something like
Malcolm's 10 point was 190, so 198, 195.
So that's the biggest one that I
Yeah, that's the biggest one we put on a scale so far.
And just the health of the herd, just us doing that and, committing to that. I mean, and there's money involved in that and there's a lot of work involved in that, but it does change your deer and give those deer that opportunity to be a lot more than what they would be if they didn't have all that. So I'm sold on it. We do it at the house as much as we can, planting food plots and different things for the deer around the house, which we don't hunt around the house that much, but
it's good to have.
It's good to have, just to, like you was talking about your dad. Well, I like watching and stuff like that. But when we go, you can really see it in when you have a large tract of property that you can do that on and let that process be seen and what the effects of that process. And it's really taking hold down there with us.
Yeah. And one of the things you see, I mean, again, it's kind of like an evolution of the process that you called it. The first year you want to see more deer. Okay. Or you want to compete with a neighbor or whatever your goal is. And you get 5 years into this thing and you probably have as much fun with the planting of the food plots and the strategy around what you're doing and the management.
The chess game
and the hunting's almost secondary.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a farm in Marshall County. I've got it with some partners and we bought it to turkey hunt because, the Delta was a fantastic place to grow up to turkey hunt. We had lots and lots of turkeys. In fact, the place that I grew up turkey hunting, a lot of the turkeys that were restocked throughout Mississippi came from that particular farm. And, we had floods for so many years and the floods almost decimated our turkey population. And so it's a feast or famine type, hunting experience down there now. And so we wanted to get something out of that floodplain where we could have more consistent turkey hunting. Now we turkey hunt, we're very committed turkey hunting hunters, but we spend more time today thinking about what can we plant for the turkeys? Where can we burn? What habitat can we improve? I mean, I'm almost to the point where my dad is. I mean, I almost feel bad shooting one of those turkeys. Almost.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to see, what your hard work has, produced and stuff like that.
That's right.
They almost become pets a little bit. You still got to manage them,
right?
But because you can't get overpopulated, and we don't want to go back that direction. Because when Malcolm bought that farm, we've had to do some pretty heavy, pretty much killing.
Get rid of some miles.
Oh yeah,
because they would just decimate a food plot or any of the natural browse in the woods and things like that. And we committed to that first year, really just going in hard and just trying to get that population down.
And that was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
I don't disagree.
It was a lot of fun.
But it becomes work.
It does.
It does.
Well, going back to talking about how Mississippi's kind of a hidden gem, what I was leading into was when we started doing this down at Malcolm's property, we had a normal Mississippi deer herd. Mm-hmm. It wasn't nothing crazy. And I become good friends with a guy in Indiana. And to see their deer herd versus ours, I was like, dude, Indiana's unbelievable. Like there's beast of a deer up there. And now, like I'll send him pictures off our camera and we're right there tit for tat now. And this has been, that property was purchased in 2017.
Yeah,
Yeah.
17 or 18.
And then probably not taking it serious, managing it to probably 2020, I guess. Probably 2019, 2020. So in that amount of time, our herd has changed that much.
Right.
And I'm not saying we got any 250-pound deer like some of these deer up north are, but from where it went from to now, all goes back to year-round food plots and taking care of your property. Not the animal itself. Take care of the property.
That's right.
The animal will follow suit.
Absolutely.
And again, it's paid off for sure.
So I wanted you to talk a little bit about today about, I guess, the process or best practices for maybe planting winter food plots, and maybe some summer plots, and things like that. Some of the grains that are, available and that we, should be looking at. And maybe we got some that we're not utilizing.
Yeah, and there's some things that are great, but for some reason they're noxious weeds in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of states plant sun hemp, for example, and right now it's still classified as a noxious weed in the state of Mississippi, and we can't plant it. But that's a plant that you've probably never heard of, but is gaining a lot of popularity in a lot of other states that can plant it. I tell people, I mean, sometimes we overthink the food plot. We get caught up into a celebrity that's endorsing this or that, or, some new, species or something. Yeah. But the reality is the first thing you've got to do is you've got to say, what's my intent? Okay. What's my objective for doing it? And there's some people are going to say, look, I can't manage this property year round because I don't own it, or because of my neighbors, or because of the club rules, or whatever it is. And I just want something green, that brassica or that.
We want it to look like a bag of biologic.
Right. And so you've got to say, what's my objective here? And the thing that I like to talk about most is what you see at our friend's place every Saturday in September. Okay. You can go by there 2 Saturdays. There's not a soul in the parking lot at 7 a.m. If there's a rain forecasted on Sunday or Monday and you drive by there at Friday afternoon or Saturday morning, there's 25 trucks pulled up there loading up wheat, oats, whatever blend that they want to get with fertilizer, and they're headed to their club or their lease or whatever, because they're going to hurry up and they're going to get that food plot planted before that rain comes in on Sunday or Monday. I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah.
But the reality is that process, we probably blame the seed when we don't get what we want on our impatience and our poor planning.
Yeah.
That's what drove that poor result, okay? Because we want to go out there, we haven't been in the food plot since turkey season. Go out there, the weeds are chest tall. Go in there with the disc. We disc it 27 times to get the weeds out of sight. We've turned all those weeds under. Then we go out there and we hurry up and we sling a bunch of seed on top of the ground, and then we disc it right back in. Well, we've put that seed in the most unfavorable environment that you could possibly put it in.
All the invasive weeds.
With all of that decaying matter that's going to be underneath that soil, you're creating a very unfavorable seed germination zone, okay? And so if we don't get the perfect rain or the perfect weather after that, we're destined for failure in that situation. And so when you talk about what's the process is you got to have a plan up front. We talked about this when you first started your food plot process, and it was spray those plots, right? Get that stuff dying ahead of time, because when you go in there to disc it, it's a lot better shape when those weeds are dead versus when you're trying to disc them green.
That's right.
Okay. And so seed bed preparation is probably 67% of the battle. Okay. But we tend to focus on what's the blend or what's the species or all of those things. None of those species are going to work well if you don't prepare up front. Okay. Yeah. And then, of course, we talked about this as well. Most people don't know what their fertility is. So we don't know if that soil has a low pH. We don't know what the native, phosphorus and potassium levels are. And if we go in there expecting that everything's just fine, throw out a bunch of seed, some species that we plant are very, very sensitive to soil nutrient levels or the pH, right? Yeah. And so I saw this with a guy who called me and he said, hey, everybody talks about this Balanza clover. Okay, Balanza clover is supposed to be giant, creates a bunch of biomass. Deer love it. Turkeys love it. My Balanza is about 2 inches tall. I paid a lot of money for this very expensive seed. Well, he had a pH of about 4. Okay, he didn't adjust his pH, and so that clover, no matter how good it was, had no chance of success because he didn't take care of the number one thing he needed when planting clover, which is adjusting the soil pH.
And I don't I don't think a lot of people do soil test anymore. I know farmers probably do, but
Not
necessarily.
No.
Well,
We think they do.
No.
But we have done them on our place, and and if you're looking at one of those soil tests, it is a little overwhelming looking at the sheet. If you're not educated on it, it's best to have somebody there that knows how to understand and kind of give you a little consultant and tell you, hey, if you do, and maybe help you with a plan, help you get a rotation of fertilizer or lime or whatever you're needing for your property into that soil to where you can, your crops can thrive. So,
yeah. And I think that's why you want to deal with somebody, wherever you buy your seed from. If you've got somebody there that knows what they're doing, those guys can help you a whole lot. Okay. Especially with things like fertility, just to make sure that seed, again, you set it up for success versus failure.
So for instance, if just like what me and Jamie did at the house, we cleaned up a little plot. We did not set it up for success because we bush hogged sweet gums down and took a root rake to it and we threw some seed out, But
sounds familiar.
I mean, I wanted to do something that was simple and easy, not necessarily the best practice, but something that your average Joe probably has done in their lifetime. We sowed the seed out thinking we were getting rain, and all right, we're 2 weeks out. We don't have rain. What can you do, or is it just you just hope and pray?
Well, that never hurts. But I was this weekend, we were planting food plots this weekend on the farm. My cousin's in, he drives in about once or twice a year, because he's busy just like we all are. He says, look, I can come help. And so we get in that rush just like anybody else to get things done. Well, we had a little small spreader. We were planting the hidey hose.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about, and had a little spreader on the back of the side-by-side. It's got an electric motor on it. It slings it out. Electric motor goes out. All right. So now we've got some pretty expensive blends.
Time to get a solo cup out. Start throwing it.
And so my cousin says, hey, he's like, look, you just drive along and I'll sit in the back and I'll sling it out. And I said, nope. I said, this seed costs too much. I said, we don't have a rain in the forecast. Right?
Yep.
There's no sense in throwing this out. There's nothing. We're not going to get a stand today or if we plant it next Friday. Said, let's do this right. Slow down a little bit. We're not losing anything. And of course, he was just, no, we got to get it planted. We don't have time to wait. But luckily, I could slow him down. And the other thing, as long as you get that seed covered, and I tell people all the time, there's a recommended seeding rate. The one thing you've got to remember about that recommended seeding rate is that that's under perfect conditions.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we're not planting under perfect conditions in most cases. That assumes that the germination is, say, 80% that's stamped on the bag. It assumes that every seed has got good seed to soil contact. And the reality is when we go out there and we sling all that seed on top of the ground and we run a disc or some other type of hair over the top of it and cover it up, you're going to have a lot of those seeds still on top of the ground. Okay. And those seed that are on top of the ground and not covered, not only do they take more moisture to get them up, you've got to have that right amount of rainfall or, several rainfall events in a row, or that seed, the biggest thing that we face is that if you've got turkeys or birds or anything else, all that seed gets gobbled up before you get a rain. And so it depends. If you've got that seed good and covered, your seeding rate was probably on the heavy side, you'll be surprised. It'll lay there for several weeks before you get a rain, and it'll be okay. Now,
is it going to be perfect? No.
It's probably not going to be perfect, but what you don't want to get is that 1 or 2 tenths of an inch of rain that just starts that germination process, and then you don't get any more rain after that. That's probably the bigger threat. When you have that dry dirt that gets drier over time, it takes more moisture to seal that soil back up to get that good seed to soil contact and stay moist long enough for it to germinate.
Makes sense.
So that's one thing, like right now, and none of us can really predict the weather, but like you said, finding those rain events that you can plant before you get into those things. Like ours right now, I've got a couple that we planted that we may have to replant because, I've planted them now thinking that this hurricane was going to bring some rain with it.
Right.
And it didn't. It veered off and it's going, away from us, and it didn't bring any rain. Of course, you can only look out 10 days on my app anyways. And anyways, we planted in there thinking that we might get some rain. We were chancing it. And so right now we've got it standing up about 1.5 inches tall out there, and we got about 10 days with no rain. So it might survive and it may not survive.
Yeah, it may not. I've probably had more calls. I was telling you this before we got started, more calls on army worms.
I was going to ask you.
This last 2 weeks, yards, food plots, pastures, whatever. And a lot of the guys that got out there in September, September 15th, or 20th, got that first hurricane rain, got the food plots up, everybody's high-fiving, go back to check on them or go back October 1st to bow hunt, and gone, dirt.
How fast can...
Like overnight, depending on the size of the,
See, I had a buddy of mine call. They lost every one of theirs.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, they would look beautiful on Friday. He said Sunday, it looked like you sprayed them all around up. They've been sitting a week. Yeah. He said it was gone.
So I've never even heard of army worms until I was at Hardin Point, and I was over there doing some food plots, and literally the bucket on the tractor would be, it'd be full of worms just going through their bush hogging stuff and getting, they'd mow a plot down.
See, I didn't know they were bad this year. And then we got them at camp on the yard.
Oh, yeah.
And it just
they've been
alleviated them. And I was like, man, okay. And I spend a lot of money on my yard each year. And I was like, man, hopefully I got home and there they are. It's like they beat me home. But yeah, I didn't think about that on deer food plots though.
No, yeah.
I never heard of it this year. As people like get into their clover, what will they not eat?
They're not real picky. Okay. They'll go through whatever. And a lot of times what happens, sometimes the army worms are already there, and we talk about a green bridge. So we take out whatever they were feeding on in the food plot or on the edges, and there's nothing left for them to eat. Food plot comes up. It's the first available thing, and they just mow right through it, But this year they've been bad all over the South this year. I went down to a soybean field, and it late planted soybeans, and the army worms had gotten in there. The farmer didn't notice it. There was nothing but a stick. That's it. It was just the stem of the soybean, and the gravel road that ran alongside the field looked like the gravel was moving. Yeah. There were so many army worms because they were leaving that field. There's nothing left of that field, and they were just coming out of the field, going to find something else.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So what, like on this kind of off subject, but like on the Bermuda, they kill the crap out of it, but they don't damage it. Like you don't see them eat them down. So what does the army worm do to a grass to kill it without, you would think like on a food plot, they wipe it out. They eat the leaves and all. Well, on Bermuda or in your yard, you don't see that.
Well, think about it. Bermuda's a perennial too, right? So you get a frost on it, and it burns back, looked like it dead, but you've got those stolons, and they green back up every year. So you've got, for lack of a better term, you've got life that's still there attached to that soil, okay? Yeah. When you've got these annual grasses like a ryegrass or a weed or an oat, there's nothing established there. Okay. The only thing it's got is the seed
and what's sticking up,
and that's it. And when you take everything that's sticking up, what feeds that? There's nothing left. There's nothing left.
So what can you do to kind of combat the army worms if you can catch them in time?
They're easy to kill. Okay. It's just all about finding them before they wipe you out. Yeah. And what we do, so in crops, for example, you've probably seen that, there's a group of people that plant cover crops, okay, before they plant the soybeans or corn or cotton or whatever. And that cover crop usually looks like a food plot out there. So you have to kill that with Roundup and other herbicides before you plant your corn or your soybeans or your cotton. Okay. We always put an insecticide in with what we call the burn down, because you want to kill, if there are any army worms around there or cutworms or any other insects that are in there, you want to kill them when you kill the weeds, because if you don't, they're going to sit there until your crop emerges, and guess what they're going to eat first?
They've been waiting on it.
They've been waiting on it. And so we usually, I tell people all the time, if you think you're going to have an army worm problem, go ahead and spray your food plots after you've planted them. Okay. Because that insecticide will last a little while, and it'll kill those worms that may be present, that you don't see. And trust me, I mean, there can be thousands of them there that you don't see.
That's a bunch.
Oh, it's hundreds of thousands. I mean, it's unbelievable.
So kind of explain the difference to people so they understand. Like, they go to a big box store and look at a bag of food plot mix. It's going to say like a cereal or a rye or a grain. I mean, what's
You're going to get me in trouble.
No, I'm just saying how somebody don't understand what they
look
are.
For?
Yeah, they're like, it'll say a rye. Is a rye good? Then it'll say it might be a cereal type. See, so explain the differences between them.
Again, I go back to what's your intent. Okay. I mean, a green field, a field of green ryegrass in the middle of a power line, when the acorns run out, guess what? A deer will eat it all day long. Okay. Is it the most preferred thing? Probably not. Okay. But it's green. They're hungry. They're going to come to it. If you're thinking about something that maybe has a higher protein content, or you want something that's more attractive than a ryegrass, that's when you start to look at some of these other species. I always tell people, if your intent is to have a mix out there that's kind of covering all of your bases, then what I usually tell folks is you want some sort of a cereal, okay, which is going to be a wheat or an oat. Okay?
Something that produces a edible grain.
Yeah, something that produces a grain, okay. I like to throw in a brassica, some brassica, whether it's a rape or a turnip or some other, brassica, and then a legume, okay? Winter peas or clover or any of those type of species. So that's a really good, simple 3-way mix that's it's not idiot proof, but it covers all your bases.
Yeah.
It works. It covers all your bases. Now, we're a little, I like, fields of clover, particularly perennial clover, because I think that's giving you it may not be 12 months out of the year because, July, August, September, when it's really dry and hot, it's not all that attractive, but you've got, a most of the year food source there. And it's good for a lot of things. It's good for deer. It's good for turkeys. It's good for all the species that we're looking at. The other thing I like about it is once you get it established, you don't have to plant it every year. It's great because I won't say it's maintenance free, but it's lower maintenance. I'm not in a hurry to go out there and disc up food plots before rain and get something out, that's planted. And then I love, you talked about, getting out in September and planting those brassicas. So I love turnips. I think turnips are great. I mean, I know you talk about the Midwest and you see what turnips are like when everything gets killed off on the top and those things heave out of the ground and it gets cold. But it's unbelievable, with the deer. So I always like to have some brassicas out there. And then most everything else, particularly where they're big fields, because on the farm, we plant big plots. I mean, they're 10, 15 acre fields. And so you can't go plant 15 acres of clover. It's not real cost effective, or at least it isn't for me. And so I'm going to plant that 3-way mix out there. And it's usually going to have, a cereal wheat or oats plus, a brassica mixed in and then, either a clover or winter pea or something like that.
So one of the mixes that I actually got this year, because we just ordered some off Amazon. Because I'm
kind of doing like a dummy test plot.
Like I want to see what the normal person can go on Amazon and just fire Walmart or Academy or whatever. One of the mixes we got had Ethiopian cabbage in it. What the heck is that?
The first I've ever heard of it. I have no idea.
I don't know what to expect. I don't know what it is. We got it planted, so we'll find out. But it was in a mix with turnips, rape, Ethiopian cabbage, and what was the other that was in it?
I can't.
It was some other brassica. I can't remember what they called it, but it was 3 or 4 brassicas, and that was in there with it. And I was like, I've never seen a mix with.
Sounds like a salad bar.
Yeah, it ought to be. We put enough out. We probably went out a little heavy, but we're planning on losing a little bit.
Right.
But I've never heard of it, and I guess I could just Google it and see, but I've never seen cabbage in a mix at all. Of any kind of cabbage.
Yeah, me either.
I mean, I guess they'll eat.
And we've sold seed, and we had lots of blends, and I never used.
Let's see what an Ethiopian.
Never used cabbage in my blend.
Yeah, I'm sure if it came up, the deer would eat it. I mean, if they knew what it was.
I guess. I mean, so I'll give you an example about knowing a deer knowing to eat something. So several years ago, we got the idea that, clover's great, but we're going to grow some alfalfa. Okay, so you look up and you find some alfalfa. It's, approved for this, zone. Okay, so you've got to get a real southern adapted alfalfa. Deer don't just flock to it like they would in, Montana or the Midwest or somewhere where they see alfalfa every day. It takes them a little while.
Yeah.
Now, once they figure it out, they love it.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a high protein. It's an excellent, 9-10 month a year food source. But it wasn't as automatic as you would think.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think it took them a little while to figure out exactly what it was. And, now they love it.
So this basically looks just like kale. And it's supposed to be known as a cover crop.
Okay.
But we will find out. We'll have a video. Huh? Yeah.
Well, I look forward to you going out there and looking and going, yep, that's rape, that's turnip, and that's Ethiopian cabbage.
Now I'm going to get you to come help me do that.
I'm going to have to look it up first.
They got these smartphones. You just take a picture of it.
Yeah, that's right.
But back to what you were saying about planting what was it you was talking about planting? My mind went blank there when Mark started talking about the Ethiopian cabbage.
Alfalfa?
Alfalfa, yeah. So the alfalfa, when we started planting vetch that first time, that was kind of the same way it was. We introduced something that they weren't real familiar with, so it took, they didn't just jump on it right off the bat.
Right.
It took a minute and it got up and then they got on it. But once they got on it,
they just live there.
As soon as it comes out of the ground, now they know what it is.
Right.
And, that's pretty neat that I guess they're kind of like us. They're kind of reluctant to eat something that they've never tried before, or, maybe they're just unsure about, whatever it is, should I eat it? You eat it, and
right,
I'm picturing them standing in the field doing that. You try it first.
Well, I feel like on that, crap, what's it called again?
Vetch,
yeah. I feel like that first year was there, like you said, it was slow, and then they all got fired up about it, and they wore it out. And
you were sending me pictures of it after a while, and
I feel like the second and third year, it's like, oh, we've had that before. But I think it's because we got our pressure's right and our numbers are better now.
Right.
But it's like, oh, that's nothing new. Let's wait on what else they gonna have us, But
Ethiopian cabbage.
Yeah, they might get some Ethiopian cabbage before it's over with. You heard it here first. I mean,
at the plant a test plot that in it, just the Ethiopian cabbage.
I'm gonna have that little half-acre food plot of mine smelling so bad between all that junk.
Now, you're gonna have a podcast on deer coming to the cabbage, and you're gonna cook it up with your with venison.
You can eat it. That's the thing. Like when I Googled it, it was mostly dishes with carrots in it.
Yeah,
you seen that too, didn't you? So Will looked it up too.
So
ain't crazy.
What's two things that somebody, if they was to buy a mix, that they need to watch out for? Like,
you want to get him in trouble?
No. It's people that just the questions they ask. It's like some of them get misinterpreted about
what is a filler. That a lot of these mixes may have filler that's pointless.
The fillers are definitely your cereals. It's going to be your wheat and oats. I mean, and because they're fillers, because they're going to come up, they're going to give you something green. So I mean, you got that peace of mind that okay, I did some good.
Right.
Okay, and they're probably, in terms of cost in that bag, they're the cheapest because they're a commodity. Whereas things like, rapeseed and turnips and clover and all those other things in the mix, they're more specialty. So they cost more to produce. They cost more to clean. It's not just something that you can go buy off the street. It's oats are grown all over the world. Wheat's grown all over the world. I mean, it's pretty easy to come by, and that's going to be your filler.
But they do put those fillers in there because, I mean, if you're selling blends and stuff like that, I mean, something's got to come up.
Well, that all goes back to
they're going to be 60-70% of the mix for sure.
Well, that all goes back to if you, like me and Mark did, and you're the 8-hour planner for something that you want to last all year. If a company sold a product and they threw it out and nothing come up,
right,
and that it's going to be stuff that's going to adapt better to.
You got to make a mix idiot-proof at the end of the day.
Again, and that's why I say most of the mixes, if somebody just calls in and says, hey, look, I just need something that's green, that's going to cover all my bases, it's going to be one of those 3 or 4 way mixes because, again, you're pretty much guaranteed to get something in that mix up that you're going to be happy with.
So what was you was talking about? We was talking about ryegrass, and it was something that was a different rye or something she was asking about.
So there's a difference in ryegrass and cereal rye.
Oh, absolutely.
So a lot of your mixes that I've seen won't have cereal rye in it. It's just ryegrass.
Could be. And I mean, but there are mixes with cereal rye in it as well.
But if you had a choice, you'd rather have the cereal rye versus ryegrass.
Probably so. But remember, I mean, if you go and you get ryegrass, I mean, there's some very inexpensive old ryegrass varieties out there that people overseed pastures with or their yard or something like that. And the problem with those is they don't spread real well. I mean, okay, they're really light. You know, it's hard to get a good distribution of them, in my opinion. But again, they don't take a lot of moisture to germinate. They germinate well on top of the ground, so it will fill in and give you something green. But if I were looking for something a little better for the deer, it probably wouldn't be Gulf ryegrass.
Yeah.
You know.
So I guess you probably see different states have different grains or different they prefer better, and it does better in that area too. And
I think most of what we plant in the South is pretty universal.
Yeah.
You know, some of the things change as you go north just because things have to be more winter hardy up there. You know, we don't typically have too many days where we get below 10 degrees for an extended period of time. Whereas you go to Indiana, you're going to have some winter kill of some stuff. So it's not going to be green, you know, once you get, you know, snow or whatever. And that's why you see a lot of these Midwestern, you know, these TV shows or these people, these wildlife consultants. I mean, you're doing the turnips, you're doing some of the green stuff, you know, the alfalfas, the clovers, all of those things, but they're also planting some of those standing crops as well, soybeans or corn, because they want something late season that's going to be above the snow. It's going to give them something to eat when it gets really cold.
Yeah, it seems like you get Indiana, you see a lot more.
Yeah, hot crops is what I'd call them.
Yeah.
We'll see, like Indiana, where I'm actually going to get to go on one of the rifle hunts up there this year, but up there where I'm going, it's literally, as far as you can see, is corn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's grain for miles.
Yep.
What do you do in that situation? How are you making a food plot to compete with that? Or you're not? You're waiting on that grain to be done. That's when your food plot capitalizes.
Yeah, and a lot of the food plots up there, so you've got kind of an early and late type strategy. So early, when that corn's standing, that's when those guys like the clovers and the green brassicas, because think about it, when it's hot outside, you got a big winter coat on, do you want to go eat a big heavy steak? You know, what's you might want to eat a steak 12 months out of the year.
You're asking the wrong group.
You're asking the wrong one.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You may lean towards something a little lighter, a salad or something like that. When it gets really cold, you've got to really pack on, you know, the carbohydrates, and you've got to pack on that fuel to keep yourself warm. That's when they're going to move to those soybeans and that corn.
All protein.
So my guys that I talk to up there, they're going to have that early season stuff, you know, October, when all the corn and beans are still out there in the field. They're going to have those little hidey hoes and things like that, because the deer aren't moving far.
Yeah.
You know, they're just going to come in there. They don't need the hot crop because there's plenty of browse, there's plenty of green stuff in the woods. And then, yeah, it's hard to compete when you've got all that waste grain on the ground. I remember I was hunting in Illinois one time, and I was on a stand. I was overlooking a little pocket in a cornfield, and I could see about 300 yards out of the cornfield there was a blacktop county road, okay? And they had been loading trucks when they harvested that cornfield on that road, and there was corn spilled out in the middle of the road. Well, the deer would walk out of the woods past me, not even touch anything that was left on the ground in front of me, walk straight out to that road and eat out of those piles of corn out there in the road. A car would come by, run them back in the woods past me, and as soon as the car's out of sight, they're walking right past me again, going out to the road. And so a deer's not stupid.
No.
You know? They're going to eat what's easy. So, you know, where I see the people having success in the Midwest is when they got those standing crops late in the season, when everything that's on the ground is either covered by snow or something's eating it or tilled in. And then there's that standing corn or beans. They're hammering that.
There.
Yep.
It's amazing just to see the amount of grain that is up there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I never been up there till a couple of years ago, when thinking the Delta was the capital of farming. The Delta does. I mean, those fields up there, one field's as big as the Delta. You know, it's insane up there.
Well, think about it. You know, year over year, I mean, we're going to have somewhere between 85 and 90 million acres of corn and soybeans in the U.S. Okay, so we're going to grow. It's not usually 1-to-1, but you may have 85 million acres of soybeans one year and 90 million acres of corn, and the next year it's 90 million acres of soybeans and 85 million acres of corn. But we have tremendous number of acres. state of Mississippi, we're growing hundreds of thousands of acres of corn and several million acres of soybeans. There are counties in states like Illinois and Iowa that have as much grain in the county as we've got in the entire state of Mississippi.
And you don't think about that until you get up there and lay eyes on
Right.
it. Like when me and Jamie went up there the first time, we turned off the highway, and I've been up there one time before Jamie, and I was like, you wait till we get out in these cornfields. I was like, I can't explain it. Like you're literally riding
Pretty
a
much
county road.
county road splitting cornfields.
Yeah,
pretty
and
much.
you don't
And
see
it's
the end
dangerous.
of it.
Those intersections are dangerous because you pull up and you got to look around the corn to see if a car.
And the light poles are right on the road because they're not in the cornfield.
That's right.
They're literally, your mirror will hit the light pole.
They farm to the road ditch. I mean, it is wall to wall.
And we were up there, I guess, last month. We went up there to cater a wedding, and we took our e-bikes. And there's all county roads, so we was going to ride our bikes to dinner one night. And again, like you say, the corn is on the white line. And we're pedaling, and you hear that deer running in that corn beside you. You're just hoping he don't come out and hit you. But it's a different world up there, that's for sure.
That's why they weigh what they weigh. They've got plenty to eat.
I couldn't imagine. That would be, that's one reason they're so big. It's just because they don't have to go anywhere to eat. They literally wake up, eat, sit right back down.
Well, if you've ever been up there and you get on a farm that you're going to hunt and the corn's still standing, it's going to be slow because a lot of times the deer are just living in the corn. And so you want that corn to be harvested, to push the deer back into the timber where you're hunting.
So corn in Indiana versus corn in Mississippi. So we plant, I would say probably a month, if not 2 months sooner than they do. They always talk about, knee high by 4th of July.
Yeah, but that's old. I mean, those guys are planting way earlier than that saying.
But we'll be double the height of them, say by end of May. Like,
oh yeah,
we'll be way bigger than them, but they catch up and they're harvesting before we are. It's like our growing season's so much longer. Was that a different breed of corn, or how do they do that?
Well, corn comes in what they call relative maturity, okay? And so they grow a shorter season maturity than we grow here in the South. So we grow a fuller season corn hybrid than they grow in the Midwest.
So it's just a different
so the
corn type of corn?
It's the same species, but it just matures differently. So we've got corn that takes, from emergence to what we call maturity, takes, say, 115 to 120 days, okay? Depending on where you are in Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, even up into Canada, they may grow corn as early as 80-day maturity or 75-day maturity. But where you are in Indiana, I would say the sweet spot, they're growing corn that's, say, 105 to 110 or 12-day maturity. So think about that.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is that corn gets less heat than we get. And so the number of days to reach that maturity may be longer up there because they don't get the heat to drive it to maturity, whereas we get plenty of heat down here and we speed up. I mean, we've got guys now, that plant the end of February down in Louisiana, and by July 4th or July 10th, they're harvesting their corn.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Heck, they could plant again if they wanted to.
But no, in Georgia, South Carolina, even they've tried it in Louisiana where they'll go plant a crop of corn, harvest the corn, turn around and plant a crop of soybeans, and harvest the soybeans.
So we need some 30-day clover.
Yeah, 30-day clover, 20-day corn will be good.
I hear you.
So you was talking about up north, the deer going and seeking out those standing grains, trying to build themselves up for winter. Do y'all do anything like that on y'all's place where y'all leave standing corn, standing grains? Do y'all see the deer move into those in any certain time, late in the winter?
Well, first of all, our deer, soybeans, they eat them whenever they're there. Okay. And so it's hard to leave soybeans because there will be nothing left.
Yeah.
I leave a good bit of corn, but let's just say I've got about a 15-acre cornfield. Okay. And went and looked at it this weekend, and there's not an ear of corn left. It's gone. Hogs. Yeah. The hogs moved in, took every ear of corn. So all of that expense, all of that work, farming that corn, gone. And so that's the problem we've got now is soybeans are hard to grow just because the deer eat them so fast.
Yeah.
But corn has been something that we could leave standing for ducks or deer, and it's been a great late season, food source. But now the hogs are so bad. If you get a stand, first of all, they eat it when you plant it. But if you get a stand, by the time it puts an ear on, they're, pushing it over, eating the ear off of it, and you're back to square one.
I know. I've noticed that, with our corn, our farms are about a mile and a half apart, something like that. On one of them, we planted corn on both farms. The biggest fields that we had on each farm, we planted full of corn. One of them, they have almost decimated that corn,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one, they hadn't hardly messed with it at all for some reason. I don't know why, but you talk about, I don't know that corn's ever been planted in there. I don't know if the previous farmer did. I don't remember him planting corn. He might have planted beans, but I don't ever remember him planting corn. But they knew what that freaking corn was over on that one farm, man. I mean, they eat it.
Is that on the other?
So that's on Salem.
So I wonder if it's because that old man had corn planted at that big house a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's just that broke them in there and they come over there, or who knows?
I don't know. Deer like corn. It doesn't take them long to figure it out.
They're in Mississippi. They've ate corn
They've
somewhere.
eaten
Somebody's
corn somewhere.
pile out there fed them some corn.
Yeah,
That's
but
right.
I mean, I know they know what it is, but I couldn't figure out why from one farm to the other, why they, I mean, because we got the same stuff growing in the fields there, and they just, I don't know. It was odd because they had just decimated that field. I mean, you can walk out there and you can find ears of corn here and there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a lot. And then the other one, you can walk down through there and snap 3 ears off of, it's still there.
Well, I noticed last week when we were down there just kind of killing time, riding around side by side, there was ears of corn all the way up there by the pond.
Yeah.
Like, I guess where they just, a coon or a
It's
deer
probably
one just
coons.
popped it in the
Coons are
mouth
as
and
bad,
struck out with it,
on the edges. The coons are terrible.
See, I was thinking that, maybe the coon population is heavier over on Salem than it is over on, by the camp over there. And maybe it may have not been the deer, it may have been the daggum coons that decimated that field that bad.
Well, you can look at it. I mean, it's pretty easy to see where the coons have gotten it. I mean, if they've drug the ear down, especially early, right after it silks and right after it pollinates, and they've drug it down, and you see that ear shuck back, and it's just nothing left on that cob, more than likely it's coons.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing.
Mhm. But yeah, that was one of the things that I was curious about, is leaving standing crops. But that's what we were trying to do. We were going to leave that standing corn there for for cover too. Kind of break up the field also. It's, even though we don't have a whole lot of corn left out there, it's still utilized as breaking up that field.
Yeah.
Some kind of a safe zone for them to travel through, and we've got our kill plots kind of actually look like a turkey foot in the field.
Mhm.
You got lanes where you can catch them as they pass through or they come through, they eat in them. But we, I don't think we're going to be able to do what we were wanting to do with the corn.
Might need to supplement a little bit.
Yeah. I might need to plant a few more acres of grain out there.
So what's your favorite to plant? If it was your property, what's your favorite?
In Mississippi? I don't know that I've got a favorite. I mean, soybeans. Look, soybeans are such a good food source for deer. It's hard if you don't have big
I
fields.
was going to say, how many acres would you have to do?
You can't up here, DeSoto
don't
County.
matter.
You can't. I mean, they're gonna, unless you fence it, they're gonna eat it. But soybeans are so good because they're good during all that, horn growth and development. All of that stuff. They're such a good food source, and then when they do make seed, I mean, they're a great late season food source as well. So soybeans are hard to beat. Again, I don't overcomplicate, my bigger plots. I mean, it's just going to be a wheat, oat, and, some legume and some brassica mix. I mean, I think that gives them whatever their preference is that day, it's out there. And then if you're looking for that just all around, protein source, during that, early growth and development and all the way through to, something that's preferred when you're hunting over it in the fall, it's hard to beat some of these really good southern adapted perennial clovers. Okay. Because once you get them established and you get your pH right, your fertility right, you control the weeds, those things are good I've got a stand of clover that's 7 years old.
Yeah.
And it's still doing pretty well. And I'm telling you, clover is just a good all around source. You can hunt over it. It feeds them during the off season. And of course, like I say, I love turkeys and turkeys love clover.
So what clovers would you be looking for?
Again, I'm going to say a brand name here, but the OG clover that really kind of got folks in the perennial clover game here is Durana. Okay, but there's lots of new Ladino type white clovers out there that, are southern adapted. They've got they're preferred. I mean, the deer like them.
Yeah.
They're hardy. They grow in this southern environment. We've got some good southern adapted stuff. The Balanza clover, from a pure biomass standpoint, it's a great clover. It makes big, tall clover, and it grows well in the spring. And I'm going to tell you, I think these better red clovers, think about red clover. You drive down the highway and you see all the red clover out there. Okay. It's prolific. It's fairly easy to grow. It's relatively inexpensive, and it's not the best.
Yeah.
But again, it's better than a lot of other things out there, and it's easy to grow, and it typically reseeds itself and comes back every year. You can see that stuff just,
they're not planting the side of the highway every year.
No. And that's what I'm saying. Then that's a good, I tell people all the time, if you want something like that, if you just want a green field in the winter field, the winter to hunt over, but then you want your turkeys to bug in it. You want to have some good protein, for the deer and the turkeys to bug in it. Mix in some red clover. You're not going to see a lot of it in the fall, but when that stuff, takes off in the spring, you're going to see how much clover was actually out there.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's easy. It's relatively inexpensive, and it's not idiot proof, but it's pretty tough.
Yeah. Does it hurt to mix? Is there any clovers that you shouldn't mix together?
Man, don't get me to lying. I can't think of anything, but
see, I've reason why I asked, because, I have planted clover mixes that we bought and stuff like that. And I've actually, mixed white and red clover together, different names, Bercine.
Yep.
Some of those, but anyways, but if you went out there, I don't know that I could pick them out of the mass of them when they're in a mix where there's 4 or 5 different kinds in there.
Yeah, on those you're probably not until they actually put a seed head on, and then you can start to tell the difference between them. But some of these, I guess newer clover varieties that are out there, they've got big leaves. They're aggressive growers. There's some that tend to be a little less pH sensitive.
Yeah.
So, and then you've got some that are more cold tolerant too. So they grow as you go north. So there's lots of different good species out there.
I definitely like planting our clover and keeping it up, maintained, because it sure does keep us from having to cut so much grass.
Exactly.
That's
why I like
utilize
it. Low maintenance.
A lot of places, is not. We've got a few fields, smaller fields, no big fields of clover. Biggest one we got might be 3/4 of an acre, something like that. But where we had found utilizing is, instead of bush hogging all those roadways and things like that, if you can get it to take hold in there, of course, some of ours won't, just because of it's not getting enough light, or, the pH is wrong or whatever. But it will help you keep some of your bush hog maintenance down, and you got stuff in the middle of the road for anything that wants to come out there. I really like hunting those roads during turkey season, especially if they're full of clover.
Absolutely.
Slipping around those things, but
turkeys love it too.
I like the clover.
I'll tell you what, if you want something, again, I love the turkeys, and we plant a lot of chufa. The chufa is it's like crack.
So when do you plant chufa?
We like to get ours planted in May, no later than say middle of June.
Okay, and so planting it. When does it mature out?
So it's going to grow.
How do you utilize it with like turkey?
All right. So first of all, if you got a high turkey population, a big density of turkeys, you better hope you get a rain behind it pretty quick to get it germinated and growing, because they're going to find it and they're going to dig it up. I'm telling you, our turkeys, they find it fast, and they'll eat it all up. But it's going to grow. It looks like a nutsedge. You know what nutsedge is? Okay, so it's a nutsedge. It's going to grow till it frosts, and then the frost is going to burn it off, and it's just going to be brown. There's going to be nothing there. But come about January, February, you're going to go out there, and it's going to look like a brim bed. Okay, you're going to see these little craters out there. Look like, what a brim bed looks like. It's going to look like it's just pox in the field, and it's where the turkeys are scratching that stuff up, looking for those nuts, those tubers that are underground, and they will destroy it. And they will dig in that stuff from January through the end of turkey season.
So do you need to have a pretty good sized field to plant chufa, or can you do it in like some of these smaller?
The bigger the better.
Yeah.
But
we burn again. We'll just go out there and plant the whole thing full of that.
I'm gonna tell you, it's something when they find it. They just live out there. They'll be dusting out there. They'll be digging out there. It's just holes in the ground.
Is it hard to maintain?
No, it's easy. Easy to kill weeds. Once you get it growing, it's tough. It's pretty drought tolerant. It grows well. I'm
gonna have to try it this year.
Yeah.
I might actually kill a turkey now. Can't call one up, so maybe we can feed him or let him.
I promise you, sit
Shoot him
there
while he's
long enough,
dusting.
you'll see one.
You have to wait till
next year.
the 2 turkey seasons from
Yeah,
now.
because we're too late.
But-
Well, we definitely appreciate it. You got what's your favorite wild game to eat?
So here's
And how do you like it?
all right. So I've got it. It's an easy list. Okay. So number 1, hands down, is wild turkey. Delicious. Number 2, and a real close second, is a dove. Absolutely love doves. I mean, I think it's underrated.
So birds got the top of your list.
Birds have got the top 2 on my list. And I would have to say third is going to be deer meat selectively, especially mixed with a whole bunch of pork fat and everything else. or dredged in flour and put down in the grease with some
There you
gravy.
go. That's hard to beat now.
Yep.
Pretty much all 3 of them, you put them in some grease, they're going to be good.
Absolutely.
Well, you got anything else, Mikey? Jamie?
No,
I'm educated now. We're gonna redo our food plot.
we look
at the
like
house.
idiots out there.
Our food plot sucks.
I mean, it was kind of just a goof off.
It was a
experiment
goof off.
thing.
I mean, I was out there with a 0-turn mower in the mud, dragging it. So, we're making the best of what we got.
That's right.
Well, we sure appreciate you coming up here.
Thanks for having me.
It's always good to have a guest because we get a different point of view, another perspective that a lot of times we don't think about. And Mikey, you got anything on the community that you touch on?
Yeah, we started a new contest that's going to run through this month. If you want to send me some of your bow kills, or if you got some pretty cool deer pictures on the camera, y'all shoot them over to us. And
That you own, that is your trail camera photo.
Don't be snagging them off the internet. They got to be yours, and we're going to verify that. So don't try to slip one in on us. But anyways, we're going to run that through to this all the way through October. And we already sent out the stuff to the winners from the first contest.
And then, Jamie, y'all got the Physically Challenged Hunt coming up. I know they got a list of supplies on their Facebook page.
Yeah, go check out Arca Butler Physically Challenged Association. They got a list of supplies we need, from food to just cookware, stuff like that.
What's your email they can reach you at if they got anything?
Jamie@killerhogs.com. And then get on Hope Outdoors also. They got some hunts coming up. They got one coming up North Mississippi. I guess it's I believe it's opening weekend's the first weekend for up here. But yeah, check both of them out and get involved with it.
Chism, you got any plugs you want to throw out there? You want to put your phone number, that way people can find you? Or?
I think I might pass on that. Mikey's got my phone number.
Well, we sure appreciate y'all listening. Y'all check us out on all the platforms. Again, if y'all got questions, we're always here. We're looking for ideas, whether it be recipes or places to hunt. So keep us posted, and good luck this hunting season, and we'll see y'all next time. As Malcolm say, we gone.